Welcome to Lesson 7-4. In this lesson, we're going to explore the question, how do you find the difference of linear expressions? Do you remember what difference means in math? It means to subtract. A new vocab word here is linear expressions. Linear expressions are expressions that we've had in this chapter where we have a variable term and a constant term. So you'll look down example 1. They both have something with an x term in it and a constant term in it. That's what we're looking for. So here, the linear expression is 5x plus 4. That's one whole term, or one whole expression with two terms. And then we are going to subtract this expression with two terms, the 3x plus 2. The important thing to take note of today is that there's a subtraction sign between it. And since there's parentheses after it, that means the subtraction sign goes with the whole set of parentheses. And that's where students usually make a mistake. So to break it down, we're going to show you to look at one kind of term at a time, just like when we were doing combining like terms. So first, our x terms. I'm going to take the 5x from the first set of parentheses and subtract, because it's a subtraction problem, the 3x from the second set of parentheses. So 5x minus 3x, if I have 5 x's and I take away 3 of them, altogether now I have 2 x's. Remember, constants are my plain numbers, so I have a positive 4 in the first problem. Remember, this plus sign means it's positive. And then I'm subtracting, and if I look in the second expression, it's a positive 2. And we all know that 4 minus 2 is 2. So for my final answer, I have to take the x term value and the constant value and put them together. So I had up here a 2x, and I had a positive 2 for the constants. So my final answer is 2x positive 2. So you have to put that plus sign to show that it was positive. Okay, let's try another one. Be really careful when negative signs start getting involved. For my x terms, I have a negative 4x. And then I subtract just a regular x. Do you remember how many that means? Hopefully you remember that means 1. So negative 4x minus 1x. If I look at my loops, I have a negative 4 and a negative 1. So that means altogether I have negative 5 x's. Or if I think I'm at negative 4x and minus 1 means I'm going down 1, means I go more down into the negatives. So that's why I have negative 5 x's. For my constants, I see I have a positive 6, and it's a subtraction problem. And then watch out. This constant is not a 3, it is a negative 3. So 6 minus the negative 3. With that, you know what to do when you have this minus and negative together. It's adding the opposite, so it becomes just 6 plus 3, which is a 9. So for your final answer, you take your x term, which was negative 5x, and your constant term, which was a positive 9, so put plus 9, and that is your final answer. I'm going to do example 3 with you to remind you to look for your like terms. So here I have a 7x at the beginning, and it's a minus problem, but I have to look all the way at the end of the other set of parentheses, not at the beginning, because that's where the x was. And I see that that's a positive 2x. So I have 7 x's, and I'm subtracting 2 x's, so altogether I have 5 x's left over. For my constants, what do I start with? Can you tell? I start with a negative 5, and then I remind myself that it's a minus problem by writing the minus sign, and then here is a negative 1. Here is where I can join these to make a big plus sign, not here. Do not connect that minus with the negative sign through the parentheses, because then you don't have a minus sign left to go with the x, the 2x that's in the parentheses, and you need to have it there. So only when you're working with one term at a time outside of the parentheses, this is where I can follow my negative rules. And if I'm down at negative 5 and I want to take away one of my negatives, minus negative 1, which means I would have only 4 negatives left. Or when it's plus, I'm at negative 5 and I'm coming up 1, so more towards the positives, so I land at negative 4. Some of you might do all that work and be like, yes, okay, I found my answers and I'm done. Please don't do all that work and then stop before you actually give the answer. Because if you don't give the final answer, then you'll get some points off. So your final answer is I have 5x's and I have a negative 4. So notice this answer will have a minus sign in it to represent that that constant was negative. Alright, go back and rewatch any of those examples if you need to hear them explained again. Once you feel comfortable, please push pause and do the 2 you try problems on your own, not watching the video. After you have answers, then you can come and check yourself and see how you did. Please be honest with that, because that helps you know what you need more practice on based on whether you can get it on your own or not. Alright, here's the first one. I had 6 x's in the first set of parentheses, and then I'm subtracting because I see this minus sign right here in the center of the problem, lets me know that this is a subtraction problem. Then the 2x in the second set of parentheses. So altogether I have 4 x's. Both set of parentheses have a negative 4. I circled it so you can see how that minus sign becomes part of the number that's after it. So negative 4 and then minus from the minus sign and then the other negative 4. So right here is where they join together to become a plus, not up here anywhere. So negative 4 plus 4, those are inverses. So you knew the inverse property, a positive and negative of the same number, is 0. So my final answer, I would say I have 4 x's and I have 0 constants, which means I don't have any constants at all. So notice I did not even bother writing the 0 in my answer, because 0 means I have nothing. Okay, now that we talked through that one, if you got it right, keep watching, you'll see the next one. If not, then push pause, double check your B, go make any changes that you need, and then when you feel confident, come check yourself. Alright, for my x's, I had a positive 3x minus, I brought the minus down, a negative 2x. I brought that down here, and here in my work is where I can make a plus sign, not up here. That will mess up the problem. So if I have 3 x's and I'm adding on 2 x's, altogether I have 5 x's. My constant's a regular 2 with no sign before it, means a positive 2. And here it says plus 1, which means a positive 1. But notice I didn't put plus 1 here. It's still a minus problem. I'm just subtracting a positive 1. So then that equals 1, and my final answer was 5 x's and positive 1, which means 5 x's plus 1. We're going to wrap up by looking at an actual application, a real-life situation that would use some variables. So after working X hours on Monday, the variable's already defined for us, X is representing hours, Molly earns $9X, which means she's going to multiply 9 times the number of hours she worked, and that's the amount of money she earned. So that means she earned $9 per hour. That's her unit rate. On Tuesday, she earns 7X plus $3. So that's like she averaged out $7 per hour, plus she got an extra $3 tip or something. So write an expression to represent how much more. When you want to find how much more something is, then that is subtraction. That she earned on Monday. So since that's the word that came first, that's what we need to write first in the problem. So it'd be 9x minus the Tuesday amount, which is 7x plus 3 in parentheses, and those parentheses are important. Even if this did not show the parentheses here, I would have to write them here to show that I'm subtracting this whole amount at once. If I didn't write them, it would look like 9x minus 7x, then add the $3 bonus. So be careful with that. So if I'm looking at my terms, I would say, well, I see a 9x and a 7x that are being subtracted. So I have 2 x's. Be very careful. How many constants do you have in the first expression? None. But that doesn't mean don't write anything. That means you have to write a 0. You still show it was a subtraction problem, and you show that it's a positive 3 or a regular 3 that you are subtracting. So if I start at 0 and subtract, I'm going to end up in the negatives. So I'm going to end down at negative 3. Or you could have done it with loops to see that that was a negative 3. So your final answer is putting them together. I have 2 x's and I have negative 3. So 2x minus 3 is the final expression. That shows how much more money she earned on Monday rather than Tuesday. The follow-up question says, if she worked for 5 hours each day, how much more money did she earn on Monday? Well, the first method would be to just use that $5 in each day. So Monday was Monday was 9x, So if I take that 5 for the hours, which they told me was the x, then I would do 9 times 5, because they're hooked together. So that means she earned $45 on Monday. Tuesday is 7x plus 3. 7 attached to x means 7 has to be times the hours, which is 7 times the 5. And I would add 3. 35 plus 3 is 38. So she earned $38 on Tuesday. And when it asks how much more did she earn, that's your clue again that we're subtracting. So I would do the 45 minus the 38 to see that she earned $7 more on Monday rather than Tuesday. Let's look at another way we can do this though without having to do all those steps. The second method is, since we already subtracted up here and found that 2x minus 3 is the answer to how much more she earned on Monday rather than Tuesday, we can just use that answer of 2x minus 3, and that's where we can say, well, x represented hours, so I'm going to substitute my 5 hours right there and subtract 3, and then this would be 10 minus 3 to give me 7. So that's a great way to do that. So either way, your final answer is that she earns $7 more on Monday. If the problem just asks, how much more did she earn on Monday? You can choose what method you want. But if the problem includes the directions using your answer or using your expression that you already found, that means you're not going to start all the way back over from Monday and Tuesday and subtract. You're going to do this method where you just take the answer from up here and bring it around, and that's where you will substitute in your number. All right, let us know in class if you have any more questions, and you'll be prepared then for your next assignment.